Welcome to In Search of More. My name is Hannah, and today we are going to talk about reading, and in particular, what I consider reading well. First of all, I might be the first one to tell you reading isn't supposed to be a chore. Disclaimer, I know some people will never love reading. That's okay. Not everyone is, but for the rest of us, if through your growing up years you learned that reading was just a chore, please try again. There is no reason to let your past experiences in elementary school or junior high or high school or even college, where you were forced to read something of someone else's choosing, ruin your love of books when you can pick them. Reading is a window to worlds and viewpoints and ideas that you can't find anywhere else. We read all the time. We just tend to read shorter text blocks than an entire book. And I know that our attention spans have changed radically thanks to the world of short form content, but please try reading. It may take you some time to build into it, but I promise reading can be deeply enjoyable. All reading can be deeply enjoyable, even the really heavy nonfiction stuff. I read a lot of nonfiction, and I genuinely love it. Now, if you're getting into reading and you're running into this thing where you're not always in the mood for the same thing, just like you're not always in the same mood for the same TV show or movie or the food, guess what? You don't have to read just one book at once. I am the queen of a bookshelf and a book stack. I have on my shelves a pile of books that I haven't read, always waiting for me based on what mood strikes. I usually have a shelf of library books that are new and interesting that I picked up for some reason that I can pick between. I pick up library books for a multitude of reasons, sometimes just because the cover's pretty and catches my eye, sometimes because someone recommended it, or because it sounded cool. So I have all of this. I have books that I've picked up from thrift stores over time for $1 here and $1 there, waiting for me to think it sounds interesting. And if that's not enough, I usually have a pile of 3 to 5 books on my nightstand at all times. The pile usually consists of theology or Christian literature. Usually, if I have a heavy one, I have a light one as well, or it's like a medium level of difficulty to read and comprehend. It takes about a medium amount of focus for me. I usually have a harder nonfiction, an easier nonfiction, and a fiction book. I might not all have 5 at once, but I usually have some semblance of those books. Usually a book that is a harder, more heady read, a book that is medium, interesting, knowledge improving, knowledge expanding, and then a truly fun book. Whatever it takes for you to be able to develop the habit of reading is so worth it. On that note, you can stop a book if you hate it. If you get partway through and you're like, this is the worst thing I've ever read, no one has to know. Stop reading it. Take it back to the library. Donate it to the thrift store. It is not the end of the world. Now, I do recommend, don't go blasting on social media how much you hated the book. That's not very nice. But just maybe don't recommend it to your friends. That being said, if there is a book that you love and are obsessed with, tell other people. Post it on social media. Mention it as the best book, one of the best books you read in 2025 or whatever year it was. Encourage other people to read it. Reread it. All of those are the beautiful gift of reading. Thirdly, you don't have to remember everything you read. Now, in my opinion, you should be taking something away from most of the books you read. I don't always take a ton away from fiction, mainly because my brain really compartmentalizes fiction and nonfiction very differently. But if you show me the cover of a nonfiction book I've read in the last couple of years, I generally can think of a couple of things that I learned from that book and how that book then connected to other things I've read. But I don't remember everything. I can reread a book 2 years later and be amazed and taken aback by completely different things. That is the beauty of a book. You don't always get it all the first pass. Now, if you want to learn how to read well, I have a couple things I would encourage. 1, read things you don't agree with. We as humans love our safety net and our happy little cozy bubble. That, my dear humans, is one of the worst things for us. The more you learn into an echo chamber, the more narrow and tight your world becomes, and the less you get to think critically and expand your horizons. So read things you don't agree with, whether it's a topic, a writer, a thought. You should not agree or fully enjoy everything you read. Very rarely do I read a book and 100% endorse everything in it. Everybody thinks differently. Everybody believes differently. Everybody has different opinions. But very rarely do I read a book where I don't appreciate or agree with something in the book. If there's something you want to study, a topic, read different views of that topic. Whether it's something polarizing or, say, for example, I want to learn about vegetable gardening. I'm going to read multiple views or philosophies on vegetable gardening. I'm going to read books on the square garden method. I'm going to read books on no-till. I'm going to read books on raised bed. I'm going to read books on in-ground gardening. I'm going to read books on traditional tilled gardening. I'm going to read a bunch of different views until I figure out what appeals to me the most. This is the easiest, most, in my opinion, the best way to learn what you actually think on a topic. So read all the views around it. This goes to theology and down to gardening, to cooking. I have read so many different bread, baking cookbooks because I am fascinated by the science behind it and the different way that science is applied, whether it's artisanal, true sourdough, yeast, fresh milled, traditional flours. All of it is fascinating to me, and to compare the recipes and contrast. Take notes and mark up your books. Caveat, if the book came from a library, no touchy the pages, okay? No touchy the pages with a highlighter or a pencil. I am not a highlighter in my books. Some people are. Great for them. I am also not a pen in my books kind of gal. I'm a pencil, and I am not great at drawing straight lines. So if you read a book that I've read, you will see bracketed little L's around text blocks that I appreciate. Text an L on the top, left corner of the start, and the bottom right corner of the end of the passage. It's super simple, takes me 3 seconds, but it's an easy way for me to visually bracket the text that I found interesting, so that when I reread the book, or when somebody else reads the book after when I loan it out, they know what mattered to me, and they can take that and go from there. I also will sometimes take notes in line around the book. Most books have some margins, so if there's something that really interests me, I'll take notes. Now, in high school, I learned a very in-depth literary analysis method. And unless I'm writing a paper about a book, I'm probably not going to go about it that way. But I do like to mark up and bracket as I go. The other big thing is talking about what you read then connects you to other readers and other books. Also, taking the stuff that gets in your head through reading and then being able to apply it in the real world is super fun. I love a good fact. I love a good fun fact. I love a good connection. I love knowledge of how the world works. And I find the things that I read spilling over to my real world on a very regular basis. And that is so cool. In some ways, I miss school because I miss learning and I miss like having all of the free time to learn. But it is so fun as an adult to read and take in all this information and then 2 weeks later realize how many times you referenced that book you read and to realize how much you learned and retained. So those are my tips to learn to read well. And I will always be here to talk interesting books, your opinions on books, your ideas of what to read next. A quick suggestion before I go is if you really liked a book and you want to read something different, check the sources of the book. Usually there's an appendix and where all the references are. Check that. And if that doesn't work, then we go to the Devil's workshop on the internet, aka Amazon. Type your book in, click on the listing for your book, and then see what Amazon recommends, because that tells you what people who bought your book that you loved also bought. And it's really interesting to go from there. I don't buy anything on Amazon anymore, but I do go to Amazon to find connections from book to book. And then I go to the library and rent them. So that is my recommendation. Now, thank you so much for joining me. And until next time, have a great day.